Good evening to everyone. So today we will start about the unconventional feed sources of the animals. Unconventional or the not regularly used feed of the animal. Then unconventional feed, there are a lot of resources coming to the introduction. The unconventional feed sources, or they are also called as feeds that have not been traditionally not used, and they are not commonly used traditionally, but they are very uncommonly used feeds. Especially, some of these feeds are used, not the routine thing. So these are called as the unconventional feed sources, and not normally used in commercially produced rations, especially of the animal rations. And the NCFR include commonly a variety of the feeds from the different perennial crops and also feeds of animal and industrial origin. So different energy sources are also there, and the standards, especially, they deal with poor quality cellulose and roughages and agro-industrial byproducts such as slaughterhouse byproducts. So some of these slaughterhouse byproducts, especially the blood meal, etc., then also the bone meal, and all these things are known as the unconventional source of the energy, especially energy, nutrition, etc. So then uh, the food sources, they are from processing of the sugar. For example, the bagas from the sugar cane, and then also the brewers waste, etc. They are called as the non-conventional feed resources. NCFR means the non-conventional feed sources. So from the processing of the sugar, cereal, grains, etc., then citrus fruits and vegetables, and the food producing of the food or the human consumption, they are also known as the unconventional source of the foods. So new sources of the foods as the pellet oil, meal effluents, and palm press fibers. For example, the palm trees or palm are used for oil extraction, and the remnants are used as the unconventional source of the feeds to the ruminants. Why we are using the unconventional source of the feeds is these are end products of the production and consumption that have not been used earlier. They are mainly the organic and can be solid, slurry, or liquid form. Their economic value is often value, and also the cost factor of these unconventional source of the feeds is also very low. Hence, these are called as the unconventional source of the fruits. And fruit such as the banana, then rejects and pineapple pulps, they comparison have sugars which are energetically very beneficial. The feed crops which generate valuable non-conventional food sources are excellent source of the fermentable carbohydrates. For example, the cassava and sweet potato, they are all used as the unconventional sources. Then concerning to the feeds of crop origin, we have got varieties of the crop origin, majorly bulk poor quality cellulose surfaces with high crude fiber and low nitrogen contents are suitable for feeding the ruminants. Hence, the they have consideration potential as feed materials, and their value can be increased and converted to some usable product whenever it is necessary. So unconventional feed sources are divided into varieties, especially the protein sources, then energy sources, then other miscellaneous sources. So what are all the energy sources? Then the common names like Vilayati, Babul, Fords, and common name is that's Algobra or Mesquite, and these are present in varieties of the countries, and it is considered as a weed, Vilayati Babul pods, and it is drought resistant and delicious small trees. So the nutritive value of these bubble pods are very good source of the energy. TDNA is 65%. Then the deleterious factor of these, they contain the tannins, hence they are not so effective. Harmful effect on the animals known to contain any other toxic substances. But what is used is any unconventional source of the feed should not be used more than 20 to 30%. And if we administer more, then it may cause some toxicity or any other thing. And any such fodders or unconventional fodders suddenly should not be put to the cattle unless the nutrient variety is known or the proximate principle and toxic principle is known. Then these are all the pods, sometimes they are used. Then apple waste or apple is called as the Malus domestica. Then the damaged apple are broken, injured during the plucking and unfit for packing, etc. are available for penalty during the apple season. Then it is a very good source of the energy, especially total digestible nutrient is 60%. The protein content is as good as high. But the after slicing, then drying and grinding of these can be incorporated as energy source up to 30% only, not more than 30%. Especially none of them these should be used more than 30%. That care has to be always taken while considering the unconventional source of the feeds. So these feeds should never be used to the 100%, especially then it causes lot of acidity also. So it is highly palatable because it is sweet, the animals like. The next source is the byproducts of tapioca, which is very commonly used in the Kerala and other parts, because tapioca starch waste, after processing the tapioca for so many other products, it can be used. And tapioca thipai can also be used. Then tapioca milk residue can also be used as unconventional source of the food. So this tapioca starch waste is a byproduct of obtained during the manufacturing of starch from tapioca roots. So it's also called as cassava or pomace. So these cassava roots yield approximately equal amounts of the starch in pomace, with less feed value than cassava root meal, but can be included in rations of the cattle not exceeding 30%. Then these do also contain the especially most of the availability of the tapioca starch waste is estimated to be 0.065 million tons every year, and most of it is used as the animal feed. Then the nutritive value is it is containing 8 to 12% of the crude protein. It's a good source of the energy because it is digestible up to the 65%. And but it contains the hydrocyanuric acid, HCN. Always one need to be careful, especially about the hydrocyanuric acid, and should be fed after HCN testing only, or uh, after exclusion of soaking of this cassava in water, it should be given, or else a severe toxicity may also happen. So, as usual, the feed additives, this can be added up to 30% only. So, the tapioca milk residue is also another source. This can also be added as the alternative product to that of the regular feed. And the nutritive value of the tapioca milk is about 3 to 4%, and 60 per 70% starch, and it can be used to be up to 20 to 25 percent only, not more than this 20 to 25% has to be used, or else it becomes the toxic material. Hence, the tapioca and other things should be used. Then tapioca tipai can also be used because these tubers, the manufacturer of sago for the tapioca roots tubers are de-skinned and soaked in water. The tubers are then fed to the crusher, adding equal amount of the water of the extraction, and thus milk obtained is allowed to pass through a sieve to remove the fibers in the mill, and the fibrous material pulp from dried is known as tapioca tipai. So this can also be used as the alternative source of the feed. So what is the nutritive value? It is just 8 to 9%. Then it is the metabolizable energy is 2450 kilocalories. Then the other things what we can use here are especially the cassava flour and the pie. They should be proportionately used as 1 is to 1. Then mixture is steam treated for 30 minutes. Then after grinding and mixing with groundnut meal and vitamin premix, it can be used as the concentrate to the extent of 20 to 30% maximum once again. Then lot of cocoa are also grown, and these can be used as unconventional source of the feed, and it contains about 63.5% of the uh, TDN and 6.3% of the digestible food protein. So the deleterious factor it contains, it has been containing the cocoa as usual now theobromine, and acquired poisonous to the animals and the human being, which limits their use. So there the theobromine is very low in the pod, hence it can be used in the feed. Then the inclusion criteria which can be used is the fresh products sometimes consumed by livestock, but to ensure that the animals consume sufficient quantities, the pods must be sun dried. At the same time, the pod meal has been fed without any toxic effects to the cattle, then to the 7 kg per day maximum, the pod meal. For dairy cows, pod meal seems to be comparable value corn on cob meal. So this can also be used as, these are all the cocoa fruits, and outer coat can be used as the animal feed. Then coconut pith is another origin of plant is claimed to be Southeast Asia, and wire fiber is made from the coconut fiber. So it is extracted by soaking the husks for the water for 6 weeks. But it is digestibility of this coconut pit may be very low, but we need to make it more and more digestible. So the availability of coconut pith is approximately 0.15 million tons in India. It contains about 62.7% total digestible nutrients. So this is the one which is about the coconut pith. Coconut pith also. Mango seed kernel is in the center of the fruit. There is large fibrous flat seed containing the kernel. So it is about the 15% of the weight of the fruit, and may be uh, very well utilized for the especially for making the cattle feed. So mango seed kernel is a waste product of the mango fruit canning industry. So varieties of the mango fruit can be made as one of the feed sources. Then also this can be used as the one of the material which is used for the unconventional food sources. Then, so the other things that can be used for the processing of the food is also the mango seed kernel, then if the nutritive value is 6.62, that is 6% crude protein is always available. TDN content is about 55%. Then compared to the deleterious factors what are present in this especially is the mango seed, they contain the deleterious properties like the high starch content may sometimes cause the acidity in case of cattle, and the kernels are also contain high level of the tannins. Hence, one should be careful while this uh, food is being used, and one need to be careful while feeding the particular source of the unconventional feed. So this is the photo of the mango seeds, and these two contain can be up to 22 to 40% of the total diet, but ruminants can tolerate the concentrates up to 50%. Then mango kernels without the additives affect the nutritional value of the animal. Then the rain tree pods are also used as the unconventional fodder. It's also called as prosopis juliflora, and these products are palatable to the animals. And these are all the rain tree fats. So some of these are do contain 16.70% crude protein and 64% TDN. The pods contain sweet edible pulp, and hence the cattle may like it. Hence, this can be included in the cattle feed to the extent of maximum 30% is always it is allowed, not more than that thing. And tamarind is another thing that is very common, large tree with a short, massive trunk. Then it is containing small leaves. Availability of tamarind is about 11 million tons annually. Then the tamarind seeds contain 30 to 40% of red hulls and 55 to 70% of the white kernels. So these are good structure of the energy, and it contains 12% protein. Whereas it also contains the tannin to the extent of 13 to 40%. Then Tamarinda syndica proteins are poorly digested when utilized by the cattle. The seeds contain low level of the lectins, which agglutinate cattle erythrocytes. So yesterday we have seen the anti-nutrition factors, and this is can be removed by overnight soaking in cold water, which reduces the tannin content. Then the how much quantity can be included is it is only fed after grinding during the scarcity period only, not only not in a every thing. It is not much palatable. To make the seeds palatable to cattle, they should be ground very well and soaked in water, and some jaggery etc. may be added. Then protein sources are the embedded cake. Its name is Deccan hemp, wild that stock rose canap, brown Indian hemp, or Embadi mesta. So it is a species of hibiscus or probably native to South Asia. So this can also be used as the source of unconventional food. So it is containing TDN 60% and crude protein 23.3% value. Whereas the this is the plant, especially embedded cake. Then the cake does not contain any toxic factor and it is quite palatable. So it can include it to the extent of 20%. Then especially in the cattle yielding about 12.9 kg milk per day. Then corn gluten meal. Maize is widely cultivated in tropics and subcontinent, including India. And maize gluten meal consists chiefly dried residues of maize after removal of the large part of starch and bran by the process employed in the wet milling. So occasionally it may contain maize oil meal, and it contains about 58% CP, 80% TDN. So this is the corn gluten meal. So this is obtained from. the processing of the maize. So the corn steep liquor, it is also byproduct of corn starch manufacturing industry. It is available in the extent of 0.01 million ton in India, and it contains 40% CP and 75 percent TDL. So a good source of the energy, and it should be included to the extent of 50%, and it has got low pH. So if it is fed more, it causes severe acidity, and it contains high phosphorus content. Care should be taken to maintain the calcium and phosphorus ratio. So it can be incorporated up to 15 to 10% level in the ration, just like the molasses, especially in growing cows and lactating cows. Then rubber seed cake, young rubber seed are highly poisonous to most of the animal, causing profuse sweating, paralysis, and ultimately death. So these rubber leaves do also contain the cyanide, and they cause the severe toxicity. So they, even though they contain more and more content of the uh, crude protein, etc., they need to be very carefully added only in the scarcity season, not every season. And rubber seed cake has to be added to the feed to the extent of just uh, 25% only maximum. Roasting and toasting, after only toasting. So this is the rubber seed cake. Then gur meal is a drought resistant legume, and it is used as one of the unconventional food source. So it's also a trypsin inhibitor. Hence, it need to be used carefully. And always the unconventional food should be used very carefully in the cattle feed or any other thing. And if they have got the toxic elements, it should be refused always. And the deleterious factor is polysaccharide or galactomannan is the deleterious effect which is present in this particular type of the feed. And toasting can be done to inhibit the entry trypsin factor. So then this is the meal what we can see here. Then Niger cake is also another thing. It is present very commonly in Andhra Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, and Orissa. So this contains 36% of the CP and 5.8% of mineral. But the protein digestibility is good, but it is one of the cake that need to be used in case of cattle, because the depression in total solids of the milk can also be done. Means the low SNF may also happen if we add this type of the unconventional feed to the higher extent. Then neem cake, of course, this is one of the bitter cake. This contains 34% protein, while processed cake shows about 48% protein. And fiber contains is only 4.4%. And neem cake, such as uh, it is palatable, unpalatable, because it is containing the bitter principle. So it can be fed up to 15 to 20%, or else this the cattle many times they are reluctant to eat it. So this is the neem cake, and sometimes it is used for the agriculture purpose as a natural pesticide. Then sun hemp seeds are also used for the oil purpose, and the nutrition value is high. It also contains the lysine and methionine on protein basis, and inclusion in the chick creation to the extent of 80% level is resulted in improved growth rate. So this can be used. But it has got a deleterious factor. It has got the pyrrolizidine alkaloids. Then they are going to inhibit the cytochrome poor 50 system in the liver to have the toxic value. So Sunham should be uh, used very carefully, because it is also a trypsin inhibitor, and it is called as the reducamine N oxide and alkali. So please remember this thing. The particularly the sun hemp. Then intake of sun hemp hay by the cattle should be restricted about only 10%, not more than this thing. Don't put it more. So this is the sun hemp, and it may contain more and more protein, but as it contains the toxic principle, it should not be used more than that. And subabul is cultivated very widely in tropics as fodder plant, but it is little having little bitter taste and contains the mimosin in it. And it's also called as the Cuba bull. They are grown all over the India, and its wide variety are fed to the cattle as the green fodder. And suitable seeds do contain 65% total digestible nutrients, and crude protein is uh, 29%. That is a very good source of the energy and protein. The seeds. Then deleterious factors, it is containing the mimosin, which has adverse effect on the growth, reproduction in animal health. So this also causes the loss of hair in young cattle. So it should be used as per recommended level. Then detoxification of this suba bull is always done by soaking it in the water and drying it later, and it should be treated to stand for a week before being mixed into the feed, and little toxicity remain, and small quantity of the mimosin can be tolerated by the cattle. And other miscellaneous sources are barbel foods is a medium to large tree, and large quantity of the extracted legumes can be used, especially for the feed purpose. Then these are separated from the pods and are ground available to the babul feed tuni. So it can be included up to 33% of the total diet. Then subabul seeds are safely used up to 10 to 30% in concentrate mixture, lactating and growing cattle. They can be used up to 30% in the ration of the bullocks. So not more than 30% it should be used. So it is also containing 12% CP and 55% the TDM. So in terms of bypass, it's a bypass protein. It's comparable to the cotton seed meal and highly beneficial for high producing milks. Directly it enters the intestine and causes the sudden increase in the milk yield. But it contains a deleterious factor. About 5% of the tannins is containing in the bawal seed. Then it also contains the deleterious factor. So due to its particular smell, peculiar smell, bubble seeds are not palatable to the animals, but consumed by the animal when mixed with more palatable conventional feeds. So the bubble seeds can be used up to 15% in the concentrate mixture of lactating cows. But in the scarcity season only, this can be used for feeding up of the animal to save the livestock. Then, before putting into the feed, they should be ground very properly. Then, otherwise, seeds pass undigested in the fishes. Then, this is the bubble seeds that can be seen, and this can be extracted from the tree and can be used as the food. And another thing is the jackfruit waste. So, in entire Karnataka, jackfruit is available to the highest extent, and it is very common source of the human food, especially in Western Ghats, starting from the Uttar Kannada, Shivamogga, everywhere this plant is very common, and everyone knows about this particular plant. So it's cultivated in low elevation throughout the India. So the Malayalam name is Chakka, and in Kannada it's called as the Halasu. So this type of the feed can be used for the purpose of unconventional source of the food. So to start with, the waste of the ripe fruits is more palatable than the waste of the raw fruits. So it contains 7.9% of the good protein and 14.1% of the crude fiber, 0.8% of the calcium, and 0.1% of the phosphorus. So this is a rich source of the energy, especially easily digestible. The jackfruit is the ripe fruit is released by the cattle. But once again, if it is uh, eaten as entirely, then it causes severe acidosis, and we have seen that several cattle have died. So the palm tree is most commonly cultivated in the world, and India is one of the most topmost countries. So it is cultivated for edible fruits, palm, for its sap, which be fermented into the palm wine. So it is also called as toddy. Male palm tree bears are called as the spadix during 2 years, 2 times in a year. So one male palm tree yields about 30 kg dry spadix per year. The flowers are produced in a big cluster of long white string like the fluorescence. So the palm male flowers are green and they can be fed to the cattle to the extent of not extending the 30% of the total nutritious quantity. And the male flowers are not palatable. As such, they should be fed with other palatable ingredients as it contains 40% TDN and 10.4% of the food protein. So this is the palm tree. You know that this palm uh, is used for drinking its water, delicious water by the human beings. Seaweed meal is also a another thing because India has got the longest coastal belt where different varieties of the seaweeds are available in plenty, but they are primitive type of the plants growing in the intertidal, subtidal regions of the sea. So, depending upon the type of the pigment present in the morphological anatomical structures, these seaweeds are broadly grouped into green, brown, red, and blue green algae. So, the seaweeds contain about 60 trace elements. So, they are richer in many of the protein, iodine, bromine, vitamin, and certain antibiotic substances. So they are very commonly used in the human food, livestock feed, fertilizer, or land crops may also be used in several part of the countries. Then phytochemicals obtained from seaweeds are used in food, confectionery, pharmaceutical industry, dairy industry, textile, and many more. So the availability of the seaweeds in India about zero point 0.6 million tons per year. So nutritive value is of course less 9 to 19, but total ash content is 23 to 44 to 62%. Then extracted variety of the seaweed contains more protein and fewer minerals. Then dried seaweeds can be utilized up to the extent of 20% only without any adverse effect on the animals. So this is this dry seaweed. What we can see is here pressed thing, and this can be palatable, made palatable if we add it to the molasses or other feed ingredient. And then sugarcane bagasse is another protein which leaves the processing stage of the sugar mill and is residues of the sugar cane stalk. So after juice is extracted, two varieties of the available. One is the fine bagasse and another one is the coarse bagasse. So the bagasse have got the leaves last producing stage of the sugar mill contains roughly about 50%, then about 1.5 to 4% sucrose. So the sugarcane bagasse can also be used as the nutritive, little bit nutritive, but it contains the digestibility is somehow less when compared to the other thing, and it contains 35% CP, very low, and TDN is also 35%, very less. Deleterious facts is it contains the lignin and very low nitrogen content of the raw bagasse limits is included in the feed. It is not making any waste. So this can be only used during the scarcity seasons and can be used with the molasses and nitrogen to the protein. And chemical treatment includes alkali, sodium hydroxide, and ammonia, and urea treatment can also be done to enrich it. So the physical treatment is use of steam at very high pressure, and bypass and bagas. Pith are often used as filters, compound diets as carriers for molasses and molasses urea mixture. Then sugarcane tops can also be included, and especially After harvesting the sugarcane, lot of tops are remaining, and these can be dried, and especially these can be stocked. And some farms they dry leaves and burned off before the cane is processed for disposal. While small farms, the top are cut for the livestock feed. So it contains the crude protein very less, 3%, but the digestible nutrient is 45%, but it contains oxalate as the deleterious factor. So the sugarcane top can be included up to for to the extent of maximum 30% only. So this can also be made as silage. Then animal byproducts like incubator waste or hatchery byproducts can also be used as eggshells. Then infertile and unhatched eggs which have been cooked, dried and powdered. Then broiler chicks when fed at level of 3 to 6% of the total ration, then the waste produced by them can be a substitute for the soybean oil meal. So properly, if we process the egg waste, etc., this can be replaced 33% fish meal, and it's a good source of the protein, especially to increase the body weight. So this is the egg waste many times, or the poultry waste. Then liver residue meal can also be used, but this has to be replaced to the extent of 10% only in presence of the fish meal. And good quality liver residue meal should contain about 65 very high content of the protein and the other essential amino acids. Dry poultry manure, yes, this is also another droppings of the poultry fed with high energy rations are likely to be rich in very nitrogen, and almost all of them cannot be digested at the same time, and hence can be used as alternative food source. So composition may vary, and the animals can be fed with the properly dried poultry can be used at 10 to 15% level only, not more than that. But it is not palatable and have got lot of smell and uric acid, etc. So need to be processed before it is going to be fed to the cattle. Then shrimp shell powder can also be used. It contains the salt is 3.7% and can be used as alternative for animal feed source. Crab meal can also be used as 30% protein. Then also it can be used up to the replacement of the fish meal. So crab meal is also available commercially. Then poultry byproducts of the meals, lot of poultry byproducts, they are wet or dry in nature and must not contain more than 16% ash and more than 4% acid soluble ash. It is, of course, containing very high quantity of the protein, but it is fairly rich in energy also. It can be used in broiler or the layer rations. So this is the thing, poultry waste. Then hydrolyzed poultry feathers can also be used, and it produces the part of the crude protein to the extent of 80 to 60% the feather. So it is fairly rich in the energy, etc. So it is inorganic nature, but protein is severely deficient in methionine, lysine, and histidine and tryptophan. Just it should be used with other protein supplements to balance it. So the feather waste is looking like this, and it can be used. So the nutritive value of commonly available feeds and India by NDDB. Then you can also read Feeds and Principles of the Animal Nutrition by GC Banerjee also. See, another source of the feed is the areca nut spade. You can see such things, and it is very commonly used in case of the Western Ghats, or wherever especially wherever the areca nut is grown as the commercial crop, and this can also be used. And you here also see that the areca nut is grown in India, then other parts of the country, Sri Lanka and many more countries, or the Malay countries. Then the areca nut spade or the leaves can be made as fine powders and can be fed to the cattle to the extent of maximum 30% only, not more than that. And you can see that this is the area in Karnataka where especially the areca nut is grown, and apart from this one also the northern part of the Karnataka are started growing the areca nut. Then the 128 square kilometers are covered under Karnataka over the this especially the growing the areca nut. So the different districts like Uttar Kannada, Chitradurga, Tumkur, Dakshina Kannada, Chikmagalur, and Shivamogga. These are all growing the especially the areca nut, and Shivamogga seems to be the highest growing area. Then the areca nut spade can be stored after drying it very properly. Then it can be milled and can be fed to the cattle. And many people ask about the nutrition values and the NINP, National Institute of Nutrition and Physiology, under the leadership of Dr. S.K. Gowda. They have done a lot of studies, and few of the results will be presented here. And cattle can eat it whenever it is processed and food. So if it is chopped very properly and put in the feed troughs, this can be used as alternative feed source. So this contains lot of the different ingredients like protein 3.8%. It is equivalent to that of the paddy straw, not any special. It is all the nutritious values. It is very equivalent to that of the paddy straw. If paddy straw is not there, then you can also have the areca nut spade. Then energy is also very deficient, 0.07. Then acid insoluble ash is 6.4%. Acid, especially it is more in the paddy straw compared to the areca nut spade. So it is lignin is also there in the paddy straw, and it is less in case of the areca nut spade. It also contains the calcium and phosphorus to the extent of 0.87 and 0.8%, and copper and iron are also present. And here you can see that areca nut production is about the 435.8 kilotons has been produced in Karnataka state and other part of the country. And these are all the areas where areca nut is grown very properly. And in many parts of the Karnataka state, this is made as powder and transported where it is required. Then this is the letter issued by the Government of India, the Patent Office, which is given to National Institute of Nutrition and Physiology, because they have done research and got the patent on this particular product. And the cattle can are very commonly administered with this thing, especially in Dakshin Kannada district and Udupi districts. So the sheep can also be fed with the areca nut spade, and this also another source of the alternative unconventional feed. And this has to be chopped very properly, or else the rumen impaction may also happen. And this is the mineral content of sheath. Here I can see go on taking it calcium 0.87, phosphorus zero point 0.8, magnesium 0.19, then the copper, zinc, ferrum, and magnesium are present in traces, very small quantity is traces. And sometimes it is used as alternative to the plastic and everyone know, and later once it is discarded, then it can be used as alternative source of the energy. And here you can see Dr. Shukmar Goda, who is with the farmers for doing the experiment. Then that's about the today's topic, especially the unconventional source of the feeds. And thank you very much for being with me.